Welcome to the West Report again. This is Tyler West, your host. I've got my good friend and our San Diego real estate correspondent with me on today. We're going to discuss the future of communities. This is especially relevant to Californians as far as the government response to coming trends in real estate and a great deal of other industries. California kind of sets the standard, and not necessarily for other states to aspire to, but it does tend to have a far-reaching impact on the direction that other states go. Since before SB 9 and SB 10, two topics which we reported on before, the state's general relaxing of the zoning laws, I've noticed that market forces are conspiring to lead us towards greater consolidation in housing. And how many of us out there have noticed family members moving in with other family members? From a financial standpoint, it makes sense to pool your resources, of course. And while I'm always suspicious of government's attempts to engineer crises for which they conveniently have the only proposed solution, I do try to find opportunity behind the changes. Now, this is going to be a free-form discussion. If any of you guys have questions or insights that you want to add, please leave a comment. We'll do our best to address them on the show. I'm going to let Keith introduce himself right now. Why don't you take a minute to tell the audience about yourself and your connection to real estate?
Okay, well, I'm Keith, and I actually am in the process right now of getting my license as well. I started off in wholesaling though. So I have a company, it's Upin Real Estate. We're wholesaling nationwide. We're making a few changes coming up where we're just going to focus on a few areas. But overall, our whole company and mission is to build more co-living spaces and kind of build community within the real estate world, and bring people together. And like Tyler was saying, pull resources together, which is starting to make more sense now for the time, for the world, where the world is at now.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I do consider it one of the biggest disappointments of our modern age that this drive towards independence and mobility has led us into a situation where families and personal networks are geographically separated from one another. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that something is missing from our modern conception of community. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on the show, because we had some really good discussions about communities in general.
Yeah.
Before. So,
oh yeah.
Being a San Diego resident, I figured you'd have some insight into this. You almost can't hear about a housing crisis in California without San Diego being mentioned. What was his name? When Falconer was running in a bid to replace Gavin Newsom, former mayor of San Diego, I believe, he couldn't stop talking about the housing crisis and how he did all these things to solve it out there. So my question to you is San Diego a hotspot for a housing crisis as far as it exists in California?
I think San Diego is, in my opinion, from what I've seen, I don't know exactly what you mean by like a housing crisis. I think that San Diego is still a solid area for real estate living. I think there's a lot of development going on still here. A lot of changes, a lot of even some zoning laws that are potentially being changed. One coming up is there's a discussion about starting to make it legal. So any single family homes who have the right lot size for it can add more than one ADU unit to their property. So I think there's going to be a lot more multifamily going on in San Diego, which is making it obviously a lot more of a hot spot. Obviously in San Diego, for the most part, there's a lot of development that's already been done. So a lot of the kind of development and more flexible zoning is obviously more inland. Like Escondido area and kind of further out over there. Everything towards the beach and along the coast is pretty much developed and is solid on the zoning, it'd be really hard to change anything like that. But yeah, that's kind of my opinion on San Diego. I think it's still growing.
Okay. And I was mainly referring to the homelessness.
Oh, homelessness. Yeah.
Housing crisis.
Homeless is down, like San Diego downtown is growing. It's definitely a big thing. It's a big problem. I was discussing with my friend the other day about it. He's very passionate about trying to help homeless people get off the street. And we were discussing some ideas, and one thing he wants to do is build a tiny home community for homeless people, where kind of self-sustainable community, more inland, to pull the homeless people out there and have the city pay for it. So taxpayers' money kind of pay their rent for it. And we were kind of discussing ideas on that, but homeless seems to be definitely growing, especially because of COVID and everything. Obviously has made a lot of people struggle financially. I know the government's printed a lot of money, but there's still a lot of financial struggle.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, what your friend is talking about doing. It's an idea whose time has come, and that could be something that could be rolled out across the several states, not just here in California. Mm-hmm. It'd be really cool. It's going to be really cool, because I think this is the way things are headed. It's going to be really cool to see what kinds of novel new forms communities and neighborhoods take on. I think that the ADU laws that you just referenced, SB 9, SB 10, SB 13, these are kind of a ham-fisted way for the government to try to push things that direction. But the real innovations are going to take place in the private sector, in smaller, micro communities.
Yeah,
it'll just be really interesting to see it all unfold.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think California in general, as like a whole state, people are definitely moving away from it for a few reasons. Obviously, like taxes, and obviously real estate is high on its own, and people want to start buying their own real estate, but it's not really easy to afford here. So people are moving inland and east to buy real estate. I don't know where working. I think still San Diego and LA and always the coast is still going to be a solid area for real estate. You might start seeing more renters around here. I don't know, but that's kind of my thoughts on it. And
it seems like the housing portion of the economy is being set up to create vast swaths of renters, and California appears to be a little bit of a trial run in that direction to me.
Yeah, San Diego, and I think a few small cities and areas, what's happening is they're going to start turning into more of tourist areas, and it's happening in a few cities. Joshua Tree is one of them. Big Bear is one of them. They're completely taken over by short-term rentals, and so it's really hard to get long-term living over there in Joshua Tree and Big Bear. And it's becoming a city where it's like all about it's travelers. That most of it's just tourism. Mm-hmm. So I think that could happen in certain areas of San Diego where people are moving out. They're moving inland to find more affordable housing, and it's going to become more of a lot of short-term rentals and rental properties are going to be.
That's interesting. Speaking of mobility, you're in sort of the mobile lifestyle space.
Yeah, van life. Yeah.
You want to share what you're doing there?
Yeah, so it's something I'm also doing, as well as I have a van conversion business called Mobile Life Conversions. We convert vans, and I think the trend of van life is becoming a lot bigger in a lot of areas, especially where I'm from. Here in Encinitas and most of San Diego has a lot of van life, meaning people are like living in their vans, or a lot of people or families have vans that are, they use as toys or whatever, take for camping or drive around and hang out by the beach in. And that whole lifestyle is becoming, I think, not just a lifestyle, but it's a community itself. I mean, I've had a van, and anytime I see another guy in like a Ford Transit, I'm like, oh, that's he's in the community. Like, we already have a connection. Yeah. So there's a community there. The thing is, and the problem is that I'm noticing, especially it's what's going to start happening, is already happening, is you're not really allowed to live legally, obviously, in your van or your RV RV, and people get ticketed all the time, and it's also becoming an issue of like parking. I mean, you see vans everywhere; they take up space. It depends, you know, a lot of them are bigger than normal cars, and so it's a lot of people are. Well, not just looking for community, but a lot of I've come across a few people who have the similar idea that I have, which is building a community for place for people to go that are like van lifers to go and live in and kind of be part of a community. And there's a few that I've already come across. I went to go visit one in Joshua Tree, and this guy is trying to build a community just for that, where people can come park their vans on there. And I gave him the idea of putting some vans on there to rent out so people can try to experience the van life. And it looks like he's doing, you know, it's doing good. And I found another one in LA that's starting soon as a concept that they already got some land. They're going to use it, start to build it up and see where it goes. But I think that could be a big part of the future, is van life communities where people can kind of come stay for a month in their van short term and travel around. Traveling, in my opinion, I think is going to be the industry of traveling and tourism is going to explode a lot more than it is now.
I happen to agree with you. In fact, we had some family land that has recently closed, which we were thinking about doing something similar, a van life kind of community. And get this, it was on a road called Freedom Way.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Would have been perfect for that. But we just didn't have the we didn't have the proximity or the resources to really build that out. So that's been sold. But it shows that, you know, people are starting to think along the same lines. People are starting to think outside the box as far as lifestyle and their housing situation. Mm-hmm. And these are just two of the ways that people are stepping outside the box with their housing. You know, we've covered in past live streams how ADUs are a really good thing to build. They can be income producing, or you can move a family member or a friend closer to you, you know, without them being up in your space all the time. Yeah. They have their own separate unit on the property. Now you can also subdivide your land into two up to a certain acreage. I believe it's 2 acreage. I can't remember. But I think we're going to see a lot of people who have a little bit excess land take advantage of this new state law in California to subdivide their property, build another living space on the other parcel, and increase the value of their real estate. A lot of people will do it simply to increase the value of their property.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Then we also got the trend with sleeping in VRBOs and Airbnbs. Mm-hmm. Something we got to experience in New York not that long ago.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Yeah, people are prioritizing travel and experiences more and more these days.
Yeah.
And the housing, the traditional concept of housing is going to have to stretch and reform to fit this new priority.
Yeah. And I think there's another big change that's also happening is for like people living long-term. And that's because the world now where it's going is obviously, you know, crypto and the digital world and metaverse, and those things are becoming like crazy. They're exploding, and there people are saying, you know, that's the future. And if that becomes the future, I mean, it's already starting to begin where we work from home and we have all that. And so I think people are gonna start to prioritize is community and the people they live with, because if you're home all the time, I mean, it's our human nature to always have relationships, to be around people and to have community. That's how in my real estate got started. Yeah, people before, the concept of shelter in real estate, people used to come together to share a piece of land and share their resources. And it was a community. And that's how humanity has always been. I mean, community and relationships have built this world, built the businesses, built the real estate that we're even in right now. So I think it's going to start to go back to that, where people are going to focus and care more about the people that they're living with, want to be living with like-minded people in communities and things like that. And I think that's also why, obviously, there's a lot more land inland from California, more like Midwest and stuff, where people are going to start to kind of buy up those land and build more community-oriented, multi-family and things like that. I think I'm personally big on tiny home living. I like that idea. I think people are gonna kind of be more careful the space that they're taking up. I don't think I think there's a lot of people that don't care too much for like these big houses and things like that. I think people are going to care more about the people that they're around. So they'll be happy living in smaller houses, living spaces, but living in a community. And so I really like the idea of tiny home communities that share the land, share the resources, you're living with people, even other families.
And unlike the situation we have, and I think this applies to most of the United States and probably a large part of Canada too, is we have these huge developments. I'm in the thick of it here in Sacramento, California. We have these huge, 1,000-home developments, some even bigger. And it's just this, you look at it and it's a sea of boxes, right? And they change the facade a little bit here and there. There might be some different features on the front yard, but they're pretty much all the same. And this concept of community has been overtaken by the physical space that you live in. And it's not really about the people that are around you anymore. How many of you out there listening right now know all of your neighbors? How many neighbors do you know? The ones, right next door to you, do you even know them?
Right.
So we call it a community, but the community is on paper only. And people are increasingly separated from the things that make a community into a community. Exactly. So that kind of ties into with what you're suggesting, is that people are going to prioritize the sense of community in the coming years. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we do see that come to fruition.
Yeah. And I think it's possible to have that sense of community in even neighborhoods that are, already developed, already built. Like, obviously I live in a neighborhood that has houses next to each other. No, we don't really know our neighbors, but it's possible to know our neighbors. Thing is, most people aren't taking the initiative to go out and get to know their neighbors or host an event or whatever it might be. So I see there's a lot of potential for businesses or concepts that I'm actually working on one right now that is going to help bring neighbors together and help your neighbors, that I'm working under, like my real estate company. But I think there's going to be a lot more of that as people start to prioritize that. And I think it's possible without having to build new real estate. It's really about just, making that effort to connect with neighbors and connect with the people around you in your community. Cause it's still a community.
Now, what's stopping people? Do people need permission to seek connection and common ground with the people that are around them?
That's a good question. I think what's stopping people now to getting to know their neighbors is also the neighborhoods, obviously different neighborhoods, and it seems like a lot more even on the other side of the country. In smaller towns, people seem to know each other a lot more. I've been to even Sedona, for example. Sedona is a small town, and there's certain bars there and places you can go, and it's like everybody knows each other. You do know your neighbors there because it's more of a small community. There's not much to do, so people start to prioritize and put their focus more on like what's going on in the community, in the neighborhood. Where I live in these bigger cities, I think it's a lot more difficult to get to know your neighbor because it's a lot busier. A lot of people are more focused on all of the so much more things that you could be doing in the city. You got the beaches, you got, you know, you and your family, and people aren't putting a much focus on your neighbors and getting to know them. It's just, and no one's really making an effort to do that because of all of the other things that, you know, there is to do around here. And it's so big.
And I would also suggest that it has a large part to do with our work ethic in the United States. The work ethic has always been to work hard, 8 hours a day. Before COVID, people were usually commuting to an office, and so their community became their office mates.
Mm-hmm.
For a large part of their waking hours, their community was their office mates. It wasn't their neighbors necessarily. Now, in a way, the whole COVID phenomenon has been somewhat of a gift if we choose to treat it as such, because now people realize, okay, I don't need to commute to work. I can work from home. A lot of people can work from home, which means that I have more time to spend with my family and taking care of family matters. It also means that you have more time to engage your neighbors. Now, whether or not people choose to take advantage of that new freedom, that's up to people. And I think that we're up against sort of like a cultural, like the culture is kind of stuck in a rut. It's kind of stuck in its ways. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think the big concept here for me is intentionality. Now, when you talk about intentional communities, you might think of like a hippie commune, okay? But that's not exactly what it means to me. I think it's just exercising more control about who you choose to live around and seeking the common ground, common purpose that ties a community together. When that common purpose exists mostly in the workplace, it's really hard to create the time and create the space to build relationships with your neighbors.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But now we have this opportunity to redefine the way we think about community, away from the old way and towards something that's more connective.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people are going to put more focus onto it eventually. You said something that kind of really supported our point, which was that people were used to having an office, and that's kind of where your community was. But now, because of the digital world and where things are going, and especially because of COVID, kind of pushed us a little bit even more. People are working from home now, and now you're home, you're working, you're not really out there, you're not with your, whoever you used to be around in the office and things like that. So people are going to start to crave community more and being around people more and the relationships, and it's going to become a priority and focus for people to be with the right people that they want to live with and live around and have more things going on in their local communities. And that's kind of where I'm putting a lot of my focus is being kind of encouraging and building systems and platforms to support local community connection and neighbors connecting with each other and living communities, people to connect with each other through living.
One of the things that I think creates that sense of community that is so important is common experiences. And one of the things that you've been working on are a platform for connecting people around events. Is that right?
Yeah, I have an app on the store called UPin, and it's supposed to help you stay connected with your local community and keep communities connected.
And what was your initial what was what prompted you to create this? Is this something that happened or something you noticed in your own life?
Yeah, it actually started. The idea started from being on an off trail that's kind of excluded. It's not. It wasn't really a trail. We kind of went off the trail, and people were coming in and walking in. And I was thinking in my head, how do people know about this place? And then I started thinking about, like, it'd be cool to drop a pin in this area, and people on a map could be like, oh, this, people are coming together over here. I want to join that. And then from there, it kind of evolved, and the idea, and I realized what it could be. And this is really about community and about finding your community locally and being able to join them and staying connected with people you meet in real life. And then that's kind of the whole focus of it. And yeah.
So it's a wonderful idea, and I could see it. I could see it actually helping bring communities together. Got a question, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but does it work?
The app, it works. Yeah, it's on the store. Right now, it doesn't have anything going on there because I haven't marketed it or anything like that. Obviously, our target audience right now it was supposed to be hosts, because we got to get hosts, people creating pins on the map. So there's actually something to join on it. So that's kind of where we're struggling. But we kind of solved that problem, and we're working on a next concept for the idea that's going to start populating the app with pins. I don't want to go into that idea, but we're working on something that's going to make it easier for people right off the bat to use and find things to do.
Well, keep us posted on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so I mean, we're talking about communities for people who are just now joining us. We're talking about communities and living and lifestyles, and doing it with more intentionality. And we covered, there's the mobile lifestyle, which is something that I think a lot of young people are gravitating to. You would have more insight into that.
Absolutely.
Doing it.
Yeah, definitely.
It seems like something that the younger generations are really gravitating towards. We talked about tiny homes and tiny home communities. That's something that's becoming more accepted out there. And, California has made some updates to its laws, which actually enable the tiny home concept to be more accessible to folks who already own land, who already own property. And that is that they relaxed the restrictions on ADUs or accessory dwelling units. That's a really cool development that we've covered before. So when I think of, if we zoom out 40,000 foot view at communities, I'm picturing these mixed use developments and communities, which is defined as kind of like putting residential and commercial all together into a master planned community. And there's one in Elk Grove that I recently visited. My friend lives there, which is really cool. I couldn't remember the name, otherwise I'd have pictures for you. But it's just really exquisitely laid out and designed. There's wide open spaces for taking walks. There's lots and lots of water features. There's several community buildings, and I guess they host musical events there pretty frequently.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It is cool.
Wow.
And so that seems to me like kind of a commercialized, but well executed version of the intentional communities that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing that idea start to be scaled up even more. I'm sure you've heard, and a lot of other people watching have heard, about Bill Gates buying up huge tracts of land. And I think that's in anticipation of the private cities concept. So
it's interesting.
Most of us haven't heard about private cities. I thought it was like a utopian, far off in the future idea when I first heard about it. That is until I started researching it, and I realized they're already doing this. This is actually a thing. So there's a city, this privatized, technology-enabled, green mega city that they're building in Saudi Arabia. It's totally privately owned. It's called Neom. I don't really know how to pronounce that, but you can find all the literature about it online, and they are trying to create a city where you can commute anywhere inside of 20 minutes. It's 80 or 90% land, which I thought was interesting. No cars, and it's all technology enabled. So a lot of the services infrastructure and architecture would be basically run by AI to give the citizens more leisure time.
Yeah. So you said there's no cars. How do people get around? It's that small?
It would be small enough to where I assume you could take public transportation, which could include like bicycles and other non-emissions producing vehicles, and get around the city.
Interesting. Is that I mean, my first thought when I was thinking about that, or when you mentioned that, was if more cities like that start to exist, then the need for cars, obviously, for purchasing cars, are gonna decrease, and the rental car rentals are gonna go, because people rent cars when they need it. And that's gonna be interesting to see, because I know right now we have a chip shortage, so buying cars at any place is now 5 or 10% markup from the deal. It's hard to get cars. The used car market, it'd be interesting to see that drop and see where, I mean, there's so much stuff going on in every industry that's gonna change really fast.
Yeah, I agree. On the topic of the chip shortage, I guess Texas Instruments is gonna open a chip manufacturing plant in Texas, which if they succeed in opening that, that'll provide a worthy counterbalance to China's encroachment on Taiwan's chip making production.
Very interesting.
So yeah, these privatized cities are an actual thing. I know Peter Thiel, he's one of my favorite tech bros to follow. But Peter Thiel is backing an operation called Blue Book Cities, and they're proposing to do the same thing. So this is something that all the tech bros are thinking about. You know, I could even imagine Mark Zuckerberg has some plans for building a Facebook city.
Yeah, he seems to be more focused on the metaverse side of things, which is I personally am not a fan of the metaverse concept. I don't, because I'm more about, that's why I'm focusing on people, community. I think that's human nature. I think that kind of, the metaverse is taking that away. I mean, what he wants to do is have that, but it's all online. It's all virtual. So it's like you're meeting your friends or new people virtually, and you have this avatar of yourself. And I think that's just, in my opinion, a crazy concept. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna, blow up or have its phase. And this generation especially might find that really interesting to use and not have to leave your house to meet people. But I still think that there, at some point, it's always human nature to come back down to people, relationships, and being in real life, and that's where we are. That will never go away.
Yeah, my response to the metaverse is I've seen that movie before, like 25
Yeah,
times.
yeah,
I know how
yeah,
it ends.
yeah.
But there's, as much as I love to hate on some of these high profile tech magnates, um, the truth is usually somewhere in between the extremes. And yeah, I do think that our lives are increasingly saturated in technology, to the point where we may not even be interfacing with each other on a 2D computer screen in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
That could, or maybe it won't go by the wayside totally, but it'll be um, less popular than holograms and
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
augmented reality.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy world.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of strangeness and weirdness, I think, in our
Yeah,
future.
we already carry the world in our pocket, and that's been a thing
Yeah,
the last. It's been like 5 or 10 years that has changed. I feel lucky to have gotten a chance to live through having a flip phone. So I was, in my opinion, I'm a lucky guy.
yeah,
it was yeah, I got to see that. It's interesting.
man. I thought the Razor was so cool when that came out.
Yeah,
People my age will know exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, we have more computing power in our pockets than people with $1 million warehouse sized computing systems had
mm-hmm,
just 25, 30 years ago.
mm-hmm, yep,
And the fact that we can get together like this across a great distance and uh, have a live conversation, that's pretty incredible. Like,
yeah. There's definitely lots of awesome things about obviously technology. Like it's needed at this point. It's done a lot of good. I
mhm.
think it's just going to be interesting to see where the metaverse is going to go and that actual like virtual reality of life
Oh yeah,
form. That is just going to be interesting. Yeah, of the world.
yeah. We're seeing the digitization of a lot of things um, that are understood in the real world, and I could even see um, people selling NFTs on
Mm-hmm.
digital real estate, um, all kinds of things that we have real world, tangible, um, uh, something tangible are going to be digitized in this metaverse, web 25.0.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Reality.
it's gonna be really interesting to see. I personally am not too much of a fan the NFT concept. It doesn't only because the whole concept with metaverse and NFTs is like we can't digitalize ourselves and the real world that we live in. And in my opinion, I think it's going to be a phase, and it's going to be NFTs and that type of which is already starting to happen, is going to be used for only very specific things. So it's like as long as you get into the right areas with NFTs, like this concept of selling these digital art monkeys for like these thousands of dollars, just
It's
that's
silly.
going to go away really fast. Like it's
Yeah.
I don't think people are going to see real value in that eventually.
It's speculation. I totally agree with you. I
Yeah,
don't see the value. If you're doing it and you're succeeding, good for you. It's still
yeah.
speculation.
I think
The
it's
fact
a
that you can
short-term thing.
speculate better than everybody else gives you some credit. But yeah,
I do think though. Sorry, go on.
no, that's okay. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I do think where I see value in NFTs is like digitalizing physical assets to where the transactions of buying physical things are now recorded. I mean, that's the whole cool part about like decentralization and crypto and all that, is being able to, or the NFT concept is tracking every transaction. So if I were to buy a house, that would be like it come with like an NFT or digital form of it. So it's like now I have my house or my real estate in my
And you
pocket,
could actually
and I
record
think
the
that is
transaction on the
valuable.
blockchain.
Yeah, I think that something like that is valuable, and where NFTs and that concept of NFTs are going to go.
Yeah, it's gonna have to. It's gonna have
Yeah.
to. So I know you're all about you're all about extracting the lesson from this. What do you think the lessons are from our conversation today? What would you like to leave our audience with?
Sam, as always, for me, I always like to bring everything back to community. Is like that's community's everything. It's human nature. Focus on building relationships because that's what matters. Whether you're in the digital world or whatever industry, you still need to build relationships to make it happen. So keep that as a value, and always seek the lesson in every experience. Seek new perspective because that's what life is about. There's so many different perspectives now. The only way to really learn, grow, and get ahead and take advantage of the world we live in is by learning fast. And the only way to do that is to seek perspective, to build a mindset where you can constantly seek, new lesson out of things really fast and be able to grasp new concepts fast.
That's a great message. I want to thank you for getting on here with me and spitballing about the future of communities. I love your sign on the wall, by the way.
All is one. Yeah, that's my conclusion. We're all one. So yeah, thank you. Thanks.
So that was great. I'd love to do this again. Keith, thanks again. We're at 40 minutes, so I think we're going to end it there. We'll come up with some other really fun, interesting, mind-exploding topics for us.
Cool. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Cool. Thanks again. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, hey, enjoy your Thanksgiving, everybody, and we'll see you again soon on the West Report.
Cool. Bye, guys.